Sorry. Jaya Giri Baradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Brian, that was meant, I was about to share my screen. It was all set up. Now you're going to set it up again. It might be disconnected. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Just leave it. Doesn't matter. No, give me the remote. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Prarajakatara Stotra Shat Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nastaprayasta Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya. Everyone can chant. Chakshur militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Shri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale. Swayam rupa kada mahyam dadati swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam. Shri Gurun Vaishnavam scha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lungayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramanandamadavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, chapter 28, the process. Lord Kapila Dev explains the process of devotional service. We're on text first, number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Nirpatmaje Manoyenaiva Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Nirpatmaje Manoyenaiva Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Nirpatmaje Manoyenaiva Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Padmaje. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya nirpatmaje manoyanaiva vidina prasanam yati satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Logasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Nirpatmaje Manoyenaiva Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshye Sabijasya Nirpatmaje Manoyenaiva Vidina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the personality of Godhead said, Yogasya, of the yoga system, Lakshanam, description, Vakshye, I shall explain, Sabijasya, authorized, Nirupa Atmaje, O daughter of the king, Manaha, the mind, Jena, by which, Eva, certainly, Vidina, by practice, Prasanam, joyful, Yati, attains, Satpatam, the path of the absolute truth. The personality of Godhead said, My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. Please repeat. The personality of Godhead said, My dear mother, O daughter of the king, I now shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapila Dev in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it is clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not at all be attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. It is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices by which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system as explained by Kapila Dev. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Ashtanga yoga is therefore a part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. So the personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, I shall now explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth." So thank you very much, everyone, for coming to the Bhāgavatam class, for helping save my life for 2 hours, 1 hour which I spent studying and remembering things, thinking what to say, and now 1 hour of being forced to say things. And if you weren't here, then I wouldn't be motivated to do it. So I only have 22 more hours to go. This chapter gives kind of wonderful instructions on how to practice bhakti in a yogic way. Like Prabhupada's saying, Lord Kapila Dev is going to set out how to do Ashtanga yoga, and one sentence caught my mind. So Ashtanga yoga, where is it? Yeah, Ashtanga yoga is therefore part of Vaishnav practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. So that struck me because normally anytime we hear sometimes about yoga, we're always thinking, and Prabhupada actually stressed this point multiple times in this two paragraph purport. He said it 2 or 3 times that the point of yoga is not mystic power. The point of yoga is not mystic power. The point of yoga is not mystic power, which generally, I mean, even nowadays, people do yoga and they don't even understand about mystic power. They just think, okay, I'm going to stretch and my body's going to feel a little bit better. But actually, that's just the beginning. Well, actually, it's not even the beginning. The beginning is first getting the bad things out of your life, yama niyama, and situated on just doing good things. Then you start doing asana and pranayama. And when you're doing asana, stretching the body and different breathing exercises, pranayama, then your mind can get controlled. But like Prabhupada often criticizes the quote-unquote modern-day yogis, they will go straight to asana and pranayama without really focusing on yama niyama. And then what happens is people just do this thing, they focus their mind and they focus their bodies on what? On sense gratification. And so that's like completely against like the why you would want to do yoga. It's more or less just like a mini version of like we hear all these different great demons. They also are doing yoga practices. They're also doing asana and pranayama and all these things and focusing on samadhi, chanting a mantra, like what Ravana did. He prayed for Lord Brahma, or Hiranyakashipu, also Lord Brahma. But Ravana prayed to Lord Brahma, isn't it? Yeah. So they're doing this. They're doing Ashtanga yoga. Shiva, yeah, he got boons from many different things, but so they're doing this practice, but because they don't have yama and niyama, which are the first stages. Ashtanga, ashta means 8, so anga means limb, so it's like yoga that is comprising of 8 limbs. But the first 2 are yama and niyama, like giving up what is bad and maintaining good qualities, yama and niyama. So it means like refraining from illicit sex, having proper diet, because then when you're focusing your mind, you don't want your mind to then go back and go on all these. There's many examples, like in there's Saubhari Muni, who actually, due to the offense of committing offense towards a Vaishnav, then he was messed up in his yogic practice, because actually all the yogas are in the ladder. Prabhupada's mentioning in the 6th chapter, the last verse, yoginam api sarvesham matganterantar atmana sharavan bhajate omam same yukta tamo mataha. Anyways, Lord Brahma and Narada Muni and Prabhupada were all chanting it, the Bhakti Shastri Shloka. So the greatest yogi is one whose antar, whose mind is inwardly is fixed on the Lord, and bhajatan shravan bhajate yamam, with faithful, loving service, serving the Lord. That's the highest. So what does it mean when you have something that's the highest? It implies that there's also something that's the lowest. So there's a highest yogi, and there's a lowest yogi. There must also be a spectrum of yogis. So, and that's indeed what we hear from Prabhupada in many places, and in the Gita is explaining, they call a yoga ladder, like the yoga continuum. So, and Kapila Dev is saying in this chapter, the object of yoga is what? The object of yoga is to concentrate the mind. So if you have the highest yoga, which is essentially bhakti, focusing the mind on Krishna, serving Krishna, Shravan Bhajateyo Mam, that is the highest yoga. So therefore, that is the best, strongest way to concentrate the mind. Then you have the lowest way, which is more or less just a way to get people on the ladder, like karma yoga. Okay, do this sacrifice and do this thing, and you'll have very good, get a lot of wealth. You do this yajna to the demigods, and eventually you'll be saying Vishnu's name, Swaha, and all these things, and you'll get purified, and you'll have a more refined sense gratification. And then at the end of your life, you can go to the heavenly planets. Ooh la la, very nice. And then you can go back down and you can just keep doing that. And then if you get a little more purified, because every step of the way, all these yogic processes, like, was it yesterday or whenever Param Brahma Prabhu was giving class, he was mentioning how all these processes actually are powered by bhakti. They just have it's actually increasing amount of bhakti as you go through the processes. Then you go to jnana yoga, because at the end of karma yoga, you realize, jiva is going up and down really sucks. I don't want to really have to take birth again. Like this whole birth, death, disease, old age. That's actually, even though I got to heavenly planets and enjoyed with heavenly delights, and that was really nice. But then falling back down again really sucked. Like that's like I had my sweet rice, but then they poured a cup of sand in it, and I had to just chew the sweet rice with the sand. And I don't want to do that again. So they become a jnana yogi. They focus on studying Vedanta and saying, okay, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. What is the thing that I am that will get me out of this birth, disease, old age, and disease? And they try for liberation. And in that, there's many processes where they're chanting mantras, sometimes with Krishna's name in it. They're doing different things. They're studying Vedanta, which Krishna says, Vedanta Krid, he's the creator of Vedanta, the compiler of Vedanta. They're studying the Vedas, and of all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. So ultimately, they're gradually coming into contact with Krishna, and they're doing a little bit more because they're mechanically trying to give up sense gratification. They know that the more they engage in sense gratification, the more it's going to bind them. So the Jnana yogis give that up. But then higher than them is yogi, the jhana yogi, Prabhupada sometimes calls. That's basically chapter 6 in the Bhagavad Gita, where they go to the forest, they get a deer skin, and they sit, and they're just meditating and doing maybe different asanas, different mudras, different mantras. Even we hear Prahlad Maharaj, he gets like some sort of Vaishnav dhyana yoga practice that he has to go perform in the forest. And or Dhruva, sorry. Who did I say? I said Dhruva? I meant Dhruva. Dhruva from Narad Muni. Well, I guess Narad Muni is both of their gurus. They're god brothers. But no, I meant Dhruva. Dhruva goes to the forest. He chants different mantras. And yogis, since they're in the forest, they're away from all kinds of people. they generally have very just basic diets, whatever they can get from the forest. So their sense control is very high and very extreme. And we hear like Prahlad Maharaj, like the best example. I mean, sorry, I keep saying Dhruva Maharaj. He ends up just eating leaves and grass and like just very thinking now is like very unpalatable, nothing cooked. He's not even like going to get berries or like fruits or something like that. That might be nice. Like, oh look, I found a beehive. Let me get some honey. And oh look, I found some nuts and I found some fruits. And like, okay, yeah, well, living in the forest, that might be okay. He's just like getting leaves, and then he says, oh, these leaves are too opulent. Let me eat dry leaves. So they like, rip my mouth open when I chew them or something like that. So that's dhyana yoga, much less sense gratification, and compared to the others, and the goal is to try to keep the mind fixed on the Paramatma, which is like an anga of Krishna, and so it's much higher, much closer, although still indirect. Like the dhyana yogis, they don't think anything about service, even though that meditating on the Lord is service. And any of these different yogis, when they chant the Lord's name, when they do something related to the Lord, it is service to some extent. But since it's indirect, what you get from it is also indirect. So they're not thinking about how to serve the Lord. But their mind is much more concentrated. And because when the mind gets concentrated to drilling the respiration and doing all these breathing exercises, they can get mystic powers. They can realize that they're connected with the Supreme Lord. And because the Supreme Lord is the smallest of the smallest, they realize how to become small. And then because they realize the Supreme Lord is heavier than the heaviest, they realize how they can also become heavy. And like this, they can have, there's different cities, and some minor ones and then some completely amazing ones where they can completely baffle all kinds of material laws of nature and essentially do what they want. Like, one is Prapti City. They just close their eyes, reach out, and I can go downstairs and I can reach into the Govinda storage and grab a cheesecake and then just pull it out right here just while sitting here. Or you could close your eyes and reach all the way to Vrindavan and pull Pavani Tide back here just by closing your eyes. The Prapti City, they learn how the Lord is everywhere, and somehow they realize that they can just sit there and grab something. Prabhupada says they can just grab something from the moon. They can grab a rock from the moon without going anywhere. So that's mystic powers, and it's very amazing, but it's not the goal. Like Prabhupada's saying so many times, that's not the goal. It's just, and if they take that as the goal, then it ends up just being a distraction. The goal is actually Krishna. Or if we're talking in terms of yoga, what is the goal of yoga? The object of yoga is to concentrate the mind, to control the mind. So if you suddenly get really excited that you're like, okay, now I'm better than everyone else because I have these mystic powers, I can show it off and I can assert my superiority. Like someone was saying, everyone wants to do things just for their own prestige. Like they do everything just to have prestige, which is more or less true. Like someone wants wealth. Why do they want wealth? I mean, once you get to a certain amount of wealth, it doesn't really matter how much you have, just to say only that. Like, because you can pay for everything you need. You can pay your rent. Once you pay your rent and you pay your bills, you don't really need that much more money. But it's prestigious to get the foreign car. It's prestigious to have multiple houses. It's prestigious to have all these different things. So people want prestige. So how prestigious it is to say, hey, I can just, you can do whatever you want to me, and I can just shrink myself down to the size of an ant and I can get away. Or you can ask wherever you want. I can go and just grab an iPhone from the Apple store and without even going in there, and I can give it to you. And doing something that's amazing. People, Sai Baba, he didn't even have very much mystic power, but he could have some little vibhuti power where he could manifest ash coming from his finger. Or sometimes there's yogis that could manifest like a gem coming from their stomach or their mouth or something like that. But what's the real use? Like bhakti is actually the highest yoga. Prabhupada had a funny story where a friend told him about there was this yogi who could manifest apples. Like he could reach his hand and pull an apple, some minor Prapti Siddhi. Prabhupada said, oh, that's very, very amazing, very wonderful that he did that. And then Prabhupada told his life story. He said, well, I had no apples, and I started with just wandering around in New York, completely alone, but I was doing this bhakti yoga, and then I met some nice young people, and I started training them, and they got inspired, and they started different centers, and soon we went to Montreal, we went to the West Coast, then we went to London, and now we have hundreds of centers, and each of those centers there's so many apples. So by doing bhakti, Prabhupada also manifested so much opulence, more than any Prapti City yogi could actually do. And so we have this bhakti or this yoga ladder. You're going from karma to jnana to yoga, or dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, then finally to Vaishnav yoga, bhakti yoga, devotional yoga, and that's the highest. And it's really it kind of turns the way it works is that it seems like sense gratification is going down, and focus on the Lord is going up. But when you get to bhakti yoga, something switches. Krishna says that the mind can be your worst friend or your best enemy. No, your worst enemy or your best friend. And so, you should deliver yourself with the help of your mind and not degrade yourself. The mind is the friend and his enemy as well. So in these first three processes, the mind is treated almost like an enemy. And in the Shastras meant for Kshatriyas, they talk about different ways to deal with enemies. So karma yoga is like one way where you pacify with gifts. You give the mind, okay, we're gonna go to see all the apsaras dance, and we're gonna live in the heavenly planets, and they're gonna have all these wonderful gardens and wonderful places, and you'll be able to enjoy so much. So just don't go out and do everything crazy you want to do now. Just wait, and we can do it when we go to heaven. And the mind's like, oh, okay. And then the mind focuses on swaha, and let's get the money, and let's make sure we follow the rules, and then it does it. But then you have jnana yoga, which then it's okay, you just have to just neglect the mind and just try to by sheer force, which is actually very, very difficult. Like Krishna is saying many times in the first 6 chapters, especially, how you can't dwell on sense gratification and resist it at the same time. You have to actually have your mind engaged in something else. But as they say, if the mind's not engaged in anything else, the idle mind is Krishna's workshop? No, yeah, Maya's workshop. The Christians would say the devil's workshop. And as far as I'm concerned, the devil and Maya are more or less synonyms. The devil tries to tempt you away, or Maya is also doing the same thing. So the Jnana Yogi, they can just kind of be pretenders, and they don't really understand. Like Krishna is saying in the 4th chapter, you have to really see inaction in action, and action in inaction. So there's that's kind of confusing because it's just action and inaction, 3 words that. So one who sees action in inaction is intelligent, and inaction in action. So when you're actually doing something for the Lord, you get no karma for that. You get no reaction for that. And it's, as far as controlling your senses and controlling your mind, you can do anything for the Lord. So that's, you're doing some action, but it's actually not doing anything. It's inaction. It's completely transcendental. Whereas if you're a Jnana yogi or Jnana yogi, you're trying to reduce sense gratification. So they live in some mutt, they study Vedanta all day, they eat like I remember reading one brahmachari book written by Mayavadi. It says, you should eat, whatever you eat should be very simple and without any salt, because salt is too much. And it's you can get enough salt from whatever vegetables you eat. I was thinking, wow, that's so austere. No salt in ever eating anything. They probably don't eat any sweets. They're just extremely okay, I'm just going to study Vedanta, and I'm not this, neti, and it's very, very difficult. But like Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante nirasarya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasa param jisva nirvartate, that one who's restraining the senses from their objects, but still dwelling internally, they're not going to be very, very fixed in mind. However, one who's experiencing a higher taste, then they're fixed in their consciousness. So although it seems like the jnana yogi is having inaction, eventually, because their mind is going to like desire something and want to act, and they're not focusing on that transcendental action, it's only two ways you can go: transcendental action or mundane sense gratification. So because they're just hovering in the middle, like I don't know that worse, that eventually they fall down. And so they're it's not actually the highest way to concentrate the senses. Whereas the bhakti yoga, like the bhakta who gorges on halva and then like falls asleep for like 6 hours during the middle of the day, has a much more controlled mind than the jnana yogi who hasn't eaten sweets in 60 years and sleeps for 3 hours a day. It seems paradoxical, but it's true, because the bhakti yogi, even though he slept for 6 hours and he probably slept for 8 hours during the night, he still has a few hours left in the day. And at least with some of that time, he maybe swept the floor. He did some service for the Lord. He went and distributed a book, or did a kirtan, or cleaned the temple room, or went to the Bhagavad Gita class. And he did that for the pleasure of the Lord. Whereas the jnana yogi is doing everything on some mediary platform, not for the Lord, and he's trying to get away from sense gratification, but he's going to be forced to go back to it. So therefore his mind is ultimately going to be the devil's workshop. Even if the jnana yogi completely succeeds in eliminating all his identities and he merges into Brahman, because his ultimate identity as the soul needs to act, that pushing of the soul to act will force him to come back down. So if there's no positive engagement in Krishna consciousness, then engagement in sense gratification is more or less guaranteed, and you can delay it by different processes if you mechanically control your mind in different things, like the jnana yogi might be doing, or the other jnana yogi might be doing. But it's ultimately you have to come to service, transcendental service to the Supreme. And so, like Krishna says, like Prabhupada's saying here, Bhakti Yoga is the highest yoga, which the object of yoga is to concentrate the mind. So the highest yoga is Bhakti Yoga, so that's the best way to control the mind. And Krishna says your mind can be your friend or your enemy. So on these other stages, the mind was the enemy. But actually, when the Bhakti Yoga gets to a certain stage, the mind flips from being the friend to being the enemy, and we hear different statements. I mean, you can take the highest example, like the gopis are saying, like everyone else is saying, I want to try to remember Krishna, I want to try to remember Krishna. But Radharani is saying, I've been trying to forget him, but I can't. So that's an example of the mind is extremely attached. And I wanted to take the last part and read about how Lord Chaitanya describes his mind. I read a nice quote by Radha Govinda Maharaj, and they're saying the life of a devotee is sustained by Krishna Katha. Like when you have a field, it needs to have constant rainfall. If there's not enough rainfall, you just get a little bit of rain, then the rain doesn't soak into the ground, it just dries up, and then nothing can really grow, nothing really happens. So he said, similarly, if we just mechanically hear Krishna Katha, and we're only hearing, oh, you're not your body, you need to serve Krishna, and we just hear things like that, that will be insufficient and that won't last. And then his main point is saying we need to hear Leela. So I want to read from the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I notice how Prabhupada does not really put many purports in Antya Leela, because he mostly just wants us to hear it. There's not much really to explain, you just have to hear it. But it's related to yoga. We'll see. Lord Chaitanya compares his mind to a yogi's mind, and so I just want to read it. We're in chapter 14 of Antya Leela. Oh, maybe I can put it on the screen. Maybe we can take turns reading it. Okay. Okay. Maybe yeah, we want to take turns reading it. Maybe Prabhu, you want to start just reading like. You can read like 3-4 verses and then go to the next person. We'll read the text around 50. That's 50 for those who don't understand my New York slang. Or whatever slang that is, I don't even know.
Hare Krishna. Text 1. I shall now describe a very small portion of the activities performed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mind, intelligence, and body.
Oh, sorry, I'm making it a little bigger for you.
When he was bewildered by strong feelings of separation from Krishna. Text 2. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All glories to Lord Gaurachandra, the life and soul of his devotees. Text 3. All glories to Lord Nityananda, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very life. And all glories to Advaita Acharya, who is extremely dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 4. All glories to Swarupa Damodara and all the other devotees headed by Srivas Thakur. Please give me the strength to describe the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 5. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotion of transcendental madness in separation from Krishna is very deep and mysterious. Even though one is very advanced and learned, he cannot understand it. Text 6. How can one describe unfathomable subject matters? Is it possible only if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him the capability?
Text 7. Swarup Damodar Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami recorded all these transcendental activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in their notebooks.
Yeah, I just want to make one quick comment that how can one describe unfathomable subject matters? It's possible only if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him the capability, gives him the mercy. Like someone was asking, if God is unlimited, then how can we understand him when we're supposed to be limited? And one devotee was answering, actually, if God is truly unlimited, then because he's unlimited, he has the unlimited power to enable even the limited jiva to understand him. So that's what he's saying here. You need the mercy to understand. And all these things, we know them because they recorded them in these notebooks, and then he's just kind of repeating these. So they say Lord Chaitanya only wrote these 8 verses, but we'll hear kind of poem he made about his mind that was written in one of these notebooks.
Text 8. In those days, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whereas all other commentators lived far away from him. Text 9. These two great personalities, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami, recorded the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu moment by moment. They described these activities briefly as well as elaborately in their notebooks.
So this is how we know what's going on. Everyone else didn't really know what was going on. They were actually living with Lord Chaitanya, so their notebooks are good.
Text 10. Swarup Damodar wrote short notes, whereas Raghunath Das Goswami wrote elaborate descriptions. I shall now describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities more elaborately, as if fluffing out compressed cotton.
Phil, would you like to read? He's like a turtle, controlling his senses. Yeah.
Please hear faithfully this description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic emotions. Thus you will come to know of his ecstatic love, and ultimately you will achieve a love of Godhead. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, his condition exactly corresponded to that of the gopis in Vrindavan after Krishna's departure for Mathura. The lamentation of Srimati Radharani when Uddhava visited Vrindavan gradually became a feature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental madness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotions exactly corresponded to those of Srimati Radharani when she met Uddhava. The Lord always conceived of himself in her position, and sometimes thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. Such is the state of transcendental madness. Why is it difficult to understand? When one is highly elevated in love of Krishna, he becomes transcendentally mad and talks like a madman.
So the reason Lord Chaitanya came, Lord Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya, is to experience the mood of Radharani. And in separation, Radharani's separation is highest at different points. One when in Kurukshetra, which even though that Krishna is there, he is not really there because it's on all the kings are around there and it's not in Vrindavan. And also when she's talking with Uddhava, it's like the madness of the bumblebee. So we hear now.
Text 16. When the ecstatic emotion of enchantment gradually progresses, it becomes similar to bewilderment. Then one reaches the stage of astonishment, Vaichitri, which awakens transcendental madness. Udgurna and Chitrajalpa are two among the many divisions of transcendental madness.
Yeah, this is describing, I think, from one of Rupa Goswami's books. And then here's where Lord Chaitanya is actually experiencing it. Now we're getting into the actual pastime.
Text 17. One day while he was resting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed he saw Krishna performing his rasa dance. Text 18. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Krishna standing with his beautiful body curved in 3 places, holding his flute to his lips, wearing yellow garments and garlands of forest flowers. He was enchanting even to Cupid. Text 19. The gopis were dancing in a circle, and in the middle of that circle, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, danced with Radharani.
So one thing to note, now Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is seeing Radharani, whereas we were just hearing he was trying to take the position of Radharani. So now this is indicating he's actually he wants to experience the position of some of Radharani's servants. Like when Krishna is with the gopis, he's saying, Na pare hum, I cannot repay you. Like Pavanitai was explaining a few days ago in his class, that because Krishna is unlimited and everyone else is limited, the limited can fully give themselves to the unlimited, but the unlimited can't fully give himself completely directly just to one limited thing, because he has to reciprocate with everyone. So he can't repay them. They're fully dedicated to him, and he can't repay them. So how he repays them is he says, be happy with your own activities, and then he goes and he experiences their position. So that's and that's all they want. Because it's out of love, everyone just wants the other beloved to experience the highest happiness, to be satisfied. And so they're actually experiencing more happiness than Krishna is described. So the way that they want Krishna to repay them is by him experiencing their position, so that Krishna actually experiences that highest happiness.
Text 20. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with the transcendental mellow of the rasa dance, and he thought, now I am with Krishna in Vrindavan.
Divyangi, you're busy, you can.
So much pleasure to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Govinda saw that the Lord had not yet risen, he awakened him. Understanding that he had only been dreaming, the Lord was somewhat unhappy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his customary daily duties, and at the usual time he went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. As he viewed Lord Jagannath from behind the Garuda column, hundreds and thousands of people in front of him were seeing the deity. Suddenly a woman from Orissa, unable to see Lord Jagannath because of the crowd, climbed the column of Garuda, placing her foot on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's shoulder.
Crazy.
When he saw this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal servant, Govinda, hastily got her down from her position. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, chastised him for this.
Like, we shouldn't even put our feet to kick the cushions, although I admit I sometimes do it out of ignorance, but she put her foot directly on Lord Chaitanya, just climbing on him. And but then when the servant saw this and was thinking, oh, this is so wrong, Lord Chaitanya chastised the servant, like, what are you doing? So what did he say?
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Govinda, O Adivasya, uncivilized man, do not forbid this woman to climb the Garuda Stambha. Let her see Lord Jagannath to her satisfaction. When the woman came to her senses, however, she quickly climbed back down to the ground, and seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately begged at his lotus feet for forgiveness. Seeing the woman's eagerness, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Lord Jagannath has not bestowed so much eagerness upon me.
See the humility and also the mood of Lord Chaitanya's. And he, first of all, he's just seeing her and he's thinking, because one thing it said, Atmavan manyate jagat, that you see the world through your own consciousness. You think everyone else is a little similar to you, how you're seeing things. So because he's such in separation of Krishna, he's thinking, this woman so intensely wants to see her, I shouldn't try to block her, and I don't mind if she's climbing on the Garuda column or climbing on me, it doesn't matter, like she's so eager, that's actually amazing. But Lord Jagannath did not bless me with such eagerness to see him. I wish I had that. She has fully absorbed her body, mind, and life in Lord Jagannath. Therefore, she is unaware that she was putting her foot on my shoulder. How fortunate this woman is. I pray at her feet that she favor me with her great eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. And just previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been seeing Lord Jagannath as Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, in person. So this is how Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, Jagannath looks kind of funny. He's like a big smiley face with like two like black arms coming out. And it's like the story is that when they were building the deities, it wasn't finished. It was meant to be, a form like Krishna. Whereas Lord Chaitanya, in his ecstasy, he's actually having complete seeing darshan of not just the Jagannath form, but it transforms into Krishna. Being fully absorbed in that vision, Mahaprabhu had assumed the mood of the gopis, so much that everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna standing with his flute to his lips. After seeing the woman, the Lord's external consciousness returned, and he saw the original deity forms, Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Lord Balaram. When he saw the deities, Lord Chaitanya thought he was seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra, and he wondered, have I come to Kurukshetra? Where is Vrindavan? And then Lord Chaitanya grew very much agitated, like a person who has just lost a recently acquired jewel. Then he became very morose and returned home. He sat down on the ground and began to mark it with his fingernails and was blinded by tears which flowed from his eyes like the Ganges. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I found Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, but I've lost him again. Who has taken my Krishna? Where have I come? When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed of the rasa dance, he was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss. But when his dream broke, he thought he had lost a precious jewel. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant and dance, always absorbed in the bliss of transcendental madness. He carried out the necessities of the body, such as eating and bathing, merely out of habit. At night, Lord Chaitanya would reveal to Sarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy the ecstatic feelings of his mind. So we've been talking about how yoga is meant to control the mind. And in this Antya Leela, Lord Chaitanya is showing the Prayojana Tattva, what happens when you're actually reaching the perfection of Krishna consciousness. And he's showing that to a degree that's not possible for any jiva to actually reach. Such was when, like, Phil looks like kind of like a pumpkin now. But Lord Chaitanya in his ecstasy came a pumpkin, and sometimes his limbs stretched out. And these are not possible for the ordinary living entity. However, experiencing separation is, and experiencing the mind completely being one's friend and completely being attached to Krishna is. So now Lord Chaitanya is explaining, what is the mind actually like on these highest stages? What is he exhibiting? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, at first my mind somehow achieved the treasure of Krishna, but again lost him. Therefore it gave up my body and home because of lamentation and accepted the religious principles of a Kapalika yogi. Then my mind went to Vrindavan with his disciples, my senses. So now he's making this whole analogy how his mind is like a yogi and it's giving up his home and going to Vrindavan. Having lost the inquired gem, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with lamentation by remembering its attributes. In grasping the necks of Ramananda Roy and Sarup Damodar Goswami, he cried, "Alas, where is my Lord Hari? Where is Hari?" Finally, he became restless and lost all patience. My dear friends, please hear of Krishna's sweetness. Because of a great desire for that sweetness, my mind has given up all social and Vedic religious principles and taken to the profession of begging, exactly like a mystic yogi. The ring of Krishna's Rasa Leela, manufactured by Shukadev Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman, is as pure as an earring made from a conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. So in the analogy, these yogis sometimes wear like a specific earring and that means something. But in this one, it's saying that because he wants to just hear about what Shukadev Goswami is explaining, he's comparing the Rasa Leela as a ring, which the Rasa Leela is danced in circles, so it's a nice analogy. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring on his ear, and from a gourd he has carved out the begging bowl of my aspirations, and he has taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. The yogi of my mind wears the torn quilt of anxiety on his dirty body, which is covered with dust and ashes. His only words are, "Alas, Krishna." He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist and a turban of greed on his head. Because he has not eaten anything, he is very thin. So someone on the highest stage, they're very humble. Although they've attained the highest thing, they don't think they've attained anything. The great yogi of my mind always studies the poetry and discussions of Lord Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes in Srimad Bhāgavatam and other scriptures. Great saintly yogis like Vyasadeva and Shukadev Goswami have described Lord Krishna as the super soul beyond all material contamination. And the mystic yogi of my mind has assumed the name Mahabal and made disciples of my 10 senses. Thus my mind has gone to Vrindavan, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material enjoyment. In Vrindavan, he goes from door to door, begging alms with all his disciples. He begs from both the moving and the inert inhabitants, the citizens, the trees, and the creepers. In this way, he lives on fruits, roots, and leaves. The gopis of Vrajabhumi always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. So these different senses are always wanting to acquire these things. However, what we acquire in Krishna consciousness is prasad. Prasad means mercy. So mercy means the remnants, either the remnants left by Krishna, or we have Mahaprasad, or Mahaprasad, which is the remnants of the remnants. So the remnants of Krishna enjoyed by a servant of Krishna, and then those remnants become Mahaprasadam, and so on and so forth. So that's what he's trying to relish when he's hearing and serving Krishna. And there's a solitary garden where Krishna enjoys his pastimes. In one corner of a pavilion in that garden, the yogi of my mind with his disciples practices mystic yoga. Wanting to see Krishna directly, he remains awake throughout the night. Thus I am completely in trance. So this is the Antilila. I thought it'd be nice. It's related to yoga and how the mind is transformed in separation, which is the highest thing. There's not much we can really say directly about it. One shouldn't speak above their level of realization, although it's very purifying to hear. Unfortunately, there's no time for questions. As you can see, Param Brahma has properly left at the appropriate time. So with that, Hari Om Tat Sat, Grantaraj Srimad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai.